If you've ever watched your childhood slip away, piece by piece, you'll understand what I felt the day my parents told me they were selling our family home. Maybe you know that ache. The one that comes when you realize the place that held your first steps, your laughter, your secrets, is about to belong to someone else. My name is Rose, and this is the story of how I lost everything I thought I knew about home, and how I secretly fought to get it back. It started with a phone call. I was living in a cramped apartment across town, juggling a new job and the endless noise of city life, when my mom's voice came through the line, bright and brittle. "Rose, your dad and I have decided it's time. We're selling the house." She said it like it was no big deal, like she was announcing a new recipe she wanted to try. But I heard the tremor in her voice, the way she rushed through the words. I tried to sound supportive. "That's great, Mom. Are you sure?" But inside, I felt something crack. I hadn't been back much since college, but that house was still my anchor. Every memory I cared about was tucked into its corners. The creaky stairs, the faded wallpaper in my old room, the backyard where I learned to ride a bike. I thought it would always be there, waiting for me. My parents had always been practical. They said the house was too big, too much work, too many empty rooms now that I'd moved out. They wanted to downsize, travel, start a new chapter. I understood, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing more than just a building. I was losing the last piece of my childhood. I spent that night lying awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory I could. The birthday parties in the backyard, the way my dad would carry me up to bed when I fell asleep on the couch, the smell of my mom's cinnamon rolls on Sunday mornings. I realized I'd taken it all for granted, assuming it would always be there. Now it was slipping through my fingers. The next weekend, I went home for what my parents called one last family dinner. The house felt different, like it already knew it was being let go. Boxes lined the hallway, and the walls were bare where family photos used to hang. My room was half-packed, my childhood stuffed into cardboard and labeled with black marker. I tried to act normal, but every corner I turned felt like a goodbye. At dinner, my parents talked about their plans: condos by the lake, trips to Europe, a life with less clutter. I nodded and smiled, but my heart wasn't in it. I wanted to ask them to stop, to keep the house just a little longer, but I knew it wasn't fair. They deserved their own happiness, even if it meant letting go of mine. After dinner, I wandered through the empty rooms, touching the walls, memorizing the way the light fell through the windows. I ended up in the backyard, sitting on the old swing set, the metal creaking under my weight. I closed my eyes and let the memories wash over me. My dad pushing me higher, my mom cheering from the porch, the feeling that anything was possible. That night, as I drove back to my apartment, I made a decision. I couldn't let go. Not yet. I didn't know how, but I was going to find a way to keep the house. I started researching, calling realtors, looking up mortgage rates. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't want to get their hopes up, or worse, make them feel guilty. This was my fight, and I wanted to do it on my own. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and late-night calculations. I scraped together every penny I had, begged my boss for extra hours, and even sold a few things I loved. It wasn't enough. The market was hot, and buyers were lining up. Every time I thought I had a chance, someone else would swoop in with a higher offer. I started to lose hope. Maybe it was selfish to want the house so badly. Maybe I was just chasing a memory, trying to hold on to something that was already gone. But every time I thought about giving up, I remembered the look on my mom's face when she told me they were selling. She was sad too, even if she wouldn't admit it. I realized I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for all of us. One night, after another offer fell through, I sat on my apartment floor, surrounded by bills and rejection letters, and cried. I felt like I was losing a part of myself, like I was letting my family down. But then I remembered something my dad used to say. If you want something badly enough, you find a way. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and started again. I called the realtor the next morning and asked if there was any way to make a private offer. She hesitated, then told me there was one buyer who wanted to remain anonymous, someone who had matched the asking price and seemed determined to get the house. My heart pounded. Was it possible? Could I be my own competition? I realized then that I had one last card to play. I called a friend who worked at a local bank and asked for help. Together, we figured out a way to make an offer through a trust, keeping my name off the paperwork. It was risky and I wasn't sure it would work, but it was my only shot. The waiting was agony. My parents called every day with updates, new offers, new buyers, new plans. I pretended to be happy for them, but inside I was terrified. What if someone else got the house? What if I lost everything? Then, one afternoon, my mom called, her voice trembling with excitement. "Rose, the house sold. The buyer wants to stay anonymous, but the deal is done. We're really moving." I congratulated her, my heart racing. I wanted to tell her the truth, but I held back. Not yet. Not until the keys were in my hand. The days after my mom's call felt surreal. My parents were swept up in a whirlwind of packing, paperwork, and bittersweet goodbyes. Every time I visited, the house looked less like home and more like a memory in progress. The kitchen table where we'd shared 1,000 meals was gone, the living room echoing with emptiness. My old bedroom was stripped bare, the walls showing faint outlines where posters and photos had once hung. I tried to help, but every box I taped shut felt like sealing away a piece of my childhood. My parents were excited, but I could see the sadness in their eyes. My dad lingered in the garage, running his hands over his old workbench, while my mom spent hours in the garden, clipping roses and humming softly to herself. I caught her crying once, wiping her eyes quickly when she saw me. "It's just allergies," she said, but we both knew better. I kept my secret close, barely able to believe what I'd done. The trust paperwork was finalized, the funds transferred, and the closing date was set. I was the official buyer, but no one knew. I wanted to tell my parents so badly, to see the look on their faces when they realized the home they loved wasn't really gone. But I waited, letting the anticipation build, wanting the moment to be perfect. The day of the move arrived faster than I expected. The house was a maze of boxes and suitcases, the air thick with nostalgia and nerves. My parents moved slowly, pausing in each room to say goodbye. My dad stood in the doorway of my old room, his eyes shining. "You grew up here," he said quietly. "It's hard to let go." I hugged him, feeling the weight of everything we were leaving behind. "It's not really goodbye, Dad. It's just a new chapter." He smiled, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. My mom joined us, her arms full of photo albums. "We'll make new memories," she said, trying to sound brave. "We always do." The movers arrived, and suddenly, everything was in motion. Furniture disappeared, boxes were loaded, and the house emptied out. My parents stood on the front porch, looking back one last time. My mom squeezed my hand. "Thank you for being here, Rose. I know this isn't easy." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I wouldn't miss it for the world. We drove to their new condo, a bright, modern space overlooking the lake. My parents tried to settle in, arranging furniture and hanging pictures, but I could tell they felt out of place. The condo was beautiful, but it wasn't home. My mom wandered from room to room, looking lost, while my dad spent hours on the balcony, staring at the water. I visited often, bringing groceries and helping unpack. I listened as my parents reminisced about the old house, their voices tinged with longing. "Remember the time you painted your room purple?" My mom laughed. "It took 3 coats to cover it up." My dad grinned. Or when you tried to build a treehouse and nearly broke your arm? We laughed together, but the ache was still there. Meanwhile, I was busy behind the scenes. I met with the realtor, signed the final documents, and arranged for the utilities to be transferred to my name. I walked through the empty house, feeling both powerful and terrified. It was mine now. Every creaky floorboard, every sunlit window, every memory. I sat on the living room floor, letting the silence settle around me, and promised myself I'd honor everything this place had meant to us. The day I got the keys, I stood on the front porch, heart pounding. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, breathing in the familiar scent of wood and dust and something I could only describe as home. I wandered through room to room, touching the walls, whispering thank you to the house that had held my family together for so long. I knew I couldn't keep the secret forever. My parents deserved to know the truth, to understand that the home they loved was still in the family. I started planning the reveal, wanting it to be special. I invited them over for dinner, telling them I'd found a way to get access to the house one last time. They were surprised, but agreed, eager for a final visit. The night of the dinner, I cooked all our favorite meals: my mom's lasagna, my dad's favorite pie, the salad we always had on Sundays. I set the table in the dining room, lighting candles and placing fresh flowers in the center. The house felt alive again, filled with warmth and anticipation. When my parents arrived, they stood in the doorway, stunned. My mom's eyes filled with tears as she looked around. "It's just like we left it," she whispered. My dad walked through the rooms, touching the walls, his face softening with every step. We sat down to eat, laughter and stories filling the air. For a moment, it was as if nothing had changed. After dessert, I stood up, heart racing. "There's something I need to tell you," I said, my voice trembling. My parents looked at me, confused. I took a deep breath. "I'm the one who bought the house. I set up a trust so you wouldn't know. I couldn't let it go, not yet. This place means too much to all of us." For a moment, there was only silence. My mom covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. My dad stared at me, disbelief and pride warring in his eyes. Then he stood up and hugged me, holding on tight. "You did this for us?" he whispered. I nodded, tears in my own eyes. For all of us, for everything this house gave us. The moment my secret was out, it felt like the air in the house changed. My mom's tears turned to laughter, and my dad, who rarely showed emotion, just kept shaking his head in disbelief, a smile breaking through the shock. "I can't believe you pulled this off," he said, his voice thick with pride. "You always were the stubborn one." We sat together in the living room, the three of us, surrounded by boxes and memories. My mom reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, her voice gentle. I shrugged, suddenly shy. "I didn't want you to feel guilty. I wanted you to have your new adventure, but I couldn't let go of this place. Not yet." My dad looked around, his eyes softening as he took in the familiar walls, the worn carpet, the marks on the doorframe where he'd measured our heights every year. "You know, I always thought I was ready to move on, but sitting here, I realize how much this house means to me, to all of us." We spent the rest of the evening talking about the past, about the time I tried to bake cookies and nearly set the kitchen on fire, about the snowstorm that trapped us inside for 3 days, about the summer nights we spent on the porch watching fireflies. Every story brought us closer, stitching together the pieces of our family that had started to drift apart. After my parents left that night, I wandered through the house, feeling lighter than I had in months. I realized that home wasn't just about the building, it was about the people, the memories, the love that filled every corner. I promised myself I would take care of it, not just for me, but for all of us. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. My parents settled into their new condo, but they visited often, bringing over boxes of old photos and family treasures. We started a new tradition: Sunday dinners at the old house. My mom would cook, my dad would tell stories, and I would listen, grateful for the second chance to make new memories. Word spread quickly through our extended family. My aunts and uncles called, amazed at what I'd done. Some thought I was crazy, others called me a hero. My cousins started dropping by, drawn by the nostalgia of the house where we'd all grown up. It became a gathering place again, filled with laughter and life. But it wasn't always easy. There were days when I wondered if I'd made the right choice. The mortgage was a heavy weight, and there were repairs I hadn't expected. Sometimes, late at night, I'd sit in the kitchen, staring at the bills, wondering if I was in over my head. But every time I doubted myself, I remembered the look on my parents' faces when they realized the house was still ours. That memory gave me strength. One afternoon, as I was painting the guest room, my mom showed up with a box of old letters. "I found these in the attic," she said, setting the box on the floor. We sat together, reading through the letters, notes from my grandparents, cards from birthdays long past, even a few love letters my dad had written to my mom when they were young. We laughed and cried, the past and present blending together in a way that felt healing. My dad started coming over on weekends, helping with repairs and teaching me how to fix things around the house. We worked side by side, sometimes in silence, sometimes sharing stories. For the first time, I felt like he saw me, not just as his daughter, but as an adult, as someone capable and strong. As the seasons changed, so did we. The house became a symbol of resilience, of the ties that held us together even when life tried to pull us apart. My parents began to relax into their new life, knowing they could always come back to the place that had shaped us. I found a sense of purpose I hadn't known I was missing, a pride in what I'd accomplished, and a hope for the future. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset, my dad turned to me. "You know, Rose, I always thought home was just a place. But you showed me it's so much more than that. It's the people, the memories, the love that fills every corner. Thank you for reminding me." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. Thank you for building this home in the first place. I just wanted to keep it safe for all of us. My mom joined us, wrapping her arms around both of us. "We're lucky to have you, Rose. You gave us back something we didn't even know we'd lost." As the stars came out, I realized that the house wasn't just mine. It belonged to all of us, to every memory, every laugh, every tear. It was a living thing, shaped by the people who loved it. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I also knew I wasn't alone. My family was with me, in every sense that mattered. Together, we would keep building, keep loving, keep making this house a home. As the months passed, the house settled into its new rhythm. I found myself falling in love with it all over again, not just for what it had been, but for what it was becoming. I painted the walls new colors, planted flowers in the garden, and filled the rooms with music and laughter. Every change I made felt like a promise to my younger self, a promise that I would honor the past, but also create something new. My parents visited often, sometimes just to sit in the kitchen and drink coffee, sometimes to help with a project or drop off a box of old keepsakes. The house became a bridge between our old life and the new one we were building. My mom would bring over her favorite recipes, teaching me the little tricks she'd learned over the years. My dad and I would fix leaky faucets or hang shelves, and sometimes we'd just sit on the porch, watching the world go by in comfortable silence. One Saturday, I hosted a family reunion. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and even a few neighbors from my childhood showed up, each one carrying a dish or a story. The house was alive with voices and laughter. The backyard filled with children running and playing just like we used to. My heart felt full in a way I hadn't known was possible. I realized that by saving the house, I'd saved something much bigger: our sense of belonging, our shared history, the roots that held us together. That night, after everyone had gone home, I walked through the quiet rooms,
touching the walls, feeling the echoes of the day. I thought about all the times I'd felt lost or alone, all the moments I doubted myself. I understood now that home isn't just a place you live, it's a place you fight for, a place you choose, again and again, no matter how hard it gets. There were still challenges, of course. Some nights the house felt too big, the silence too deep. There were bills to pay, repairs to make, and moments when I wondered if I'd taken on too much. But every time I felt overwhelmed, I remembered why I'd done it. I remembered the look on my parents' faces, the laughter of my family, the feeling of coming home after a long day and knowing I was exactly where I was meant to be. One evening, as I sat on the porch with my mom, she turned to me and said, "You know, Rose, I never imagined we'd get to keep this place. I thought letting go was the only way forward, but you showed me that sometimes holding on is the bravest thing you can do." I smiled, squeezing her hand. "I just couldn't let it go, Mom. Not when it meant so much to all of us." She nodded, her eyes shining. "You gave us a second chance. You gave us back our home." My dad joined us carrying a tray of lemonade. He sat down beside us, looking out at the yard where the sun was setting behind the old oak tree. He said, "You know, I used to think home was just a roof and four walls, but it's so much more than that. It's the memories, the people, the love that fills it. Thank you, Rose, for reminding us what really matters." We sat together in the fading light, the three of us, and I felt a peace settle over me. I knew there would be more changes ahead, more challenges to face, but I also knew that whatever happened, we would face it together. The house was ours, not just because I bought it, but because we'd filled it with love, with forgiveness, with hope. As the stars came out, I thought about the future. Maybe one day I'd have a family of my own to fill these rooms with new stories. Maybe my parents would grow old here surrounded by the memories we'd made. Maybe my brother would bring his own children to play in the backyard, their laughter echoing through the years. But for now, I was content. I had fought for something I believed in, and I had won. I had turned loss into hope, fear into strength, and a house into a home. I knew that no matter where life took me, I would always carry this place in my heart. If you're listening to my story and you've ever felt like you were losing something precious, I hope you know you're not alone. Sometimes the things we fight hardest to keep are the ones that matter most. Sometimes home is something you have to build with your own hands, your own heart, your own courage. Thank you for listening to my journey. If my story touched you, please share your thoughts in the comments and let me know where you're listening from. And if you want to hear more stories about family, hope, and finding your way home, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means more to me than you'll ever know. This is Rose signing off, not just as the girl who saved her childhood home, but as someone who learned that home is where you choose to belong.